Welcome Forex traders to this video brought to you by Admiral Markets. I'm going to take a look at some retracements going on the euro dollar, pound USD, dollar yen, and AUDUSD. That's the focus of today. But first of all, be aware that this video is shown to a global audience, but it may not be suitable for everyone. Take a look at this link, select your country of residence, and contact an appropriate entity to find out more about those details. Also, trading for exchange of global financial markets is considered high risk, may not be suitable for everyone. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. By continuing watching this video, you agree with this disclaimer, plus you are aware of the risk involved when trading. Alright, let's take a look at the charts. First of all, we're going to take a look at the pound USD. And we're looking now at the daily chart. You can see, of course, price accelerating through the support line and nicely making a good bearish impulse. But there's a couple of days already that price is retracing. This is day number 7. Basically, you can see the oscillator has turned and it's in green. Of course, definitely below that zero line because of the bearish momentum. Very strong downtrend here, obviously, but there is a bit of retracement going on, and you can see that very clearly as the price goes sideways. Price hit the 23.6 fib, respected that level, and made a turnaround back down, but did not break this bottom. So from my point of view, at this moment, we're in retracement territory on the pound USD. That I'm not expecting a break of this bottom anytime this week, or perhaps even next week, in fact. I think there's going to be sizable consolidation here that could even reach the 38.2 fib before price turns around and keeps falling within this downtrend to the target, the first target, the minus 272 target at around 137. So something like this, and then a turn down to the 272 target is what I'm expecting. But the turn is not going to happen this week at the very minimum. At the very earliest, I would say next week. That's my current forecast. So from that point of view, I think there's a decent chance we're going to make a bear flag like this, and the bear flag could go back up to that fib that I talked about, the 38.2 fib. There's also a confluence with the support trend line that now becomes resistance. It has the opposite effect. It was support up here. Now it has the opposite effect, and price could use that as well as another reason to turn. So what I am expecting is a kind of a formation like this. I will put a line connecting these tops and bottoms, and kind of in there. There could be at the end a bit of a spike up to the 38.2 fib before we get the down move. So that bear flag at the moment is looking like this on the 4-hour chart, and you can see that these were dips and breaks that had good trades to the upside. Talked about that last week in the live webinars as well. And now we're seeing a bit of a rally. Certainly there could be a bit of a triangle built here when price does move up. I would expect price to move down and then probably bounce up again like that to go up to the 38.2 fib slowly but surely. So I'm expecting a bit of an up and down here. So at this moment, I'm not interested in anything, buying or selling. I think that probably from a long-term this week, or not long-term, but swing perspective, somewhere we're looking for a dip and another bounce somewhere around here, 142, 142.50, probably has the most potential, I would say, for this week. But there could be an interesting perspective as well for looking at resistance up at these fibs as well. There could be a turnaround, especially the 78.6 and 88.6 fib. I think the pound is used to deep fib retracements. That could be a turnaround to retest this support level and then go up again. I'm expecting a bit of a range, as you can see on the pound USD for this week. So I'm going to dive into the other currency pairs in just a second. Be aware that there's big news in the pound on Thursday. That's going to impact the currency a lot. There's a Bank of England interest rate decision. On the Aussie, there's an interest rate decision, and you also have NFP for the U.S. non-farm payroll, level on Friday. So there are a lot of news events to be aware of. We got a lot of webinars as well. We have the weekly FX recap, looking at the majors with Nenet. Tuesday, Wednesday, we can take a look at live trading webinars on fibs, trend lines, and price action, and moving averages. Wednesday evening and Thursday evening is reserved for education. Now taking a look at lower time frames, and we're both taking a look at scaling in, scaling out, part 1. All right, we're taking a look at the dollar yen daily chart. Big bounce off the blue line here, big support level priced in the last day, and we see acceleration out to the upside. So is that still a pullback for more downside? Is the question, and I'm still, inclined to say yes. I think that it could be just an impulsive correction. Obviously, the support level was bound to create some kind of bullish reaction, and it was a pretty strong one, in fact. However, price is now getting close to resistance, and I think that still is a very strong zone where price could find a turnaround for more downside. When we get up to these fibs perhaps, or depending on how we fib it, it could also be done a bit differently from here. And but if we use the closest one like this, 78.6 fib at 122, I think could be very clearly a resistance spot. Together with 122.85, the 88.6 fib, a lot of trend lines there, and price could at least make a turn there back down. And how far it will go is the question. I think if I take that trade, I'm going to aim for probably 120. I think is a conservative target, just in case it does make a bounce there. All right, but if it doesn't, then this could just be a pullback to fall deeper down to one of these two targets. That's still a realistic option there in scenario. So it's going to be interesting to see how price responds here. Obviously, if it does break above resistance, let's say it does do this and then down and break. Well, obviously, if it breaks this top, then things are looking different. Then we're in a bullish territory, bullish environment, and price will make a breakout with the trend. If it doesn't break this top and this trend line, this could be a bouncing spot, and it could slowly start to crawl back, then test this bottom, and perhaps then fall finally towards these targets. So these targets are not something that are going to happen, I think, soon. But if it does make this slow crawl down, eventually it could break probably this bottom, and it's going to make probably an descending wedge, with a flat bottom and a trend line that is a downward slope. So that's another scenario. Keeping an eye on both, scenarios and setups here, to the break to the upside and the slow crawl down, and then the break to the targets. Now, from the AUDUSD perspective, talked about last week the perspective for price to make a inverted head and shoulders right in here and bounce up to the 50 and the 61.8 target, and that worked out pretty well. Just like the pound USD also talked about the fact that there could be a bounce to the upside, and what happened, the AUDUSD did the same. Used the inverted head and shoulders to make that burst through the 50 and then eventually the 61.8 fibs, and you can see that all of these fibs are pretty neatly respected, in fact, all four of them. And I do think that this could be a turning around spot for more downtrend. This could be a break, this could be a pullback, and we're looking now for the bearish continuation. Price has hooked back to the broken triangle. These orange lines indicate a larger daily triangle. In fact, that has been broken. Price hooked back to it, so could now potentially continue. And if it breaks smaller trend lines like this, smaller trend lines, support trend lines here, that could be the signal for a breakout, especially if it drops below the psychological 70 round level. I think that we're looking at the potential there for a further downtrend continuation, to retest this bottom at the very minimum, and if it breaks that bottom, then to head to the target, the -272 target at 66.90. All right, so that will be the thing I'm looking for. Break below 70 there, and the trend lines, of course, and then we got these spaces, I think, on the AUDUSD to the downside. If it doesn't break to the downside, well, you never know. It could always go up to the 78.6 fib, use it as support, and then start to break to the upside. But I'm not going to trade it unless I see a very clear trend line break. It would have to be something like this, a triangle perhaps, with two trend lines like that. And if it does break above that, then perhaps I would be interested in it. But there has to be a clear triangle, I think, before I'm interested. Last but not least, the euro dollar, really not that interesting for me at this moment. There is pretty tight consolidation sideways, blue lines indicating the tops and bottoms here. We've got trend lines as well, indicating support or resistance. So I'm not very excited about this one compared to the others. But obviously, there's always the chance of yet another hook back and bounce up to resistance, and yet another resistance back down. I mean, as long as it stays in a triangle, I guess it could continue this pattern. But eventually, I guess at one point or another, we're going to see the breakout, whether it's this week, could be with an NFP news event. That could be that moment. But we've seen that this has lasted already quite long, 2 months already, with some slight exceptions here and here. So are we going to get the breakout? If we do get the breakout to the upside, I'm looking at 112 as the target, because I'm putting the fib on here to here, and you can see that's my target, -272. And if it breaks to the downside, I'm looking at 106.35 to be the target, because that's a bouncing spot because of the 78.6 fib. All right, so that's basically, if it does break the areas I'm looking for with that break. All right, that wraps up our video of this week. Thanks for joining. We hope to see you in the webinars. Looking forward to that, and wish you all good trading. Cheers.